I love our honors class. We get to talk about the big ideas, the big things, okay? Um, Make a confession to you, and you should think about this, but I consider myself a scholar. I don't consider myself a philosopher. But we're going to talk about philosophy today. And right now, in the modern world, coming out of the Germanic system, there is this huge belief in philosophy. So we have doctors of philosophy, a PhD, and so my title is Doctor of Philosophy, but I am not a philosopher. And, you know, but it depends on how you define it, okay? And so this is the big stuff we're thinking about. We want you to think about. There's no one answer here. There's no right and wrong in a sort of absolutist sense of like learning a math problem or a chemistry formula. But we need to talk about like where philosophy sort of rises up as a discipline. And this is it really roots itself into the Greeks, and for awkward historical reasons, Athens gets sort of the center of it. Although Athens probably shouldn't be, Alexandria maybe should be, or something like that. But we do get this line out of the book of Acts, in which the Athenians, because they had created an economy of leisure, largely based on being oppressive to other peoples, creating an Athenian empire. The Athenians and the foreigners who lived there spent their time doing nothing but talking about and listening to the latest ideas. This is written during the Roman period, and Athens has an ongoing reputation as a type of place of leisure in which people talk about ideas. And this is a type of root of the philosophical tradition. And we want to then focus on today Plato and Socrates and see them in the sort of helping to define what this all is, especially when we compare Plato to Aristotle. We want to be able to do that. So this is Raphael's painting of Plato, and keep that idea. The finger, Aristotle's like this, fingers going up. Athens, relatively small area, and Plato had this grove of trees in which he was the sort of master of, named the Academy. He had, as a young man, got caught up in revolutionary activities. Socrates and a bunch of the young nobility, of which Plato was part of, started arguing against democracy. This is part of the thing with in Plato's dialogues and the story of the cave and philosopher kings and stuff like that. It's a denigration of sort of popular society, popular social wisdom, and stuff like that. And so democracy got a bad rep among these young philosophically minded people, and so there's actually a revolution by, I think it's an uncle or something of Plato's, and they have to flee Athens. Plato goes for a while to Syracuse on Sicily, and then he comes back. And when he comes back, he's sort of chastened, and he's given a grove of trees to teach in, because everyone recognizes he's brilliant, So he teaches in this grove of trees, and so young men and apparently women too are sent to him, and in this grove of trees he teaches philosophy. Okay, and Aristotle comes from the wild north of Idaho, the Macedonia, to come down and spend time in the academy. And in the academy, Plato teaches the ideas primarily. We don't know how to separate him and Socrates, but he puts Socrates as the mouthpiece to pretty much all of what we call Platonic ideas, these this Plato's stuff, and comes out of this grove of trees called the Academy. And with that, that's where we as a university take the name academics. The IC there, the X is the stuff that they talked about kind of in that grove of trees. and a lot of the great Christian traditions. For about 900 years, the school of the academy existed till about 600 A.D., and then it got squashed, um, as a lot of things do. But I have had you read the Symposium, and then I've also had you read this Roman, a story of the Roman critique of the this Greek philosophy tradition, and both of them have a heavy emphasis on sexuality and sex, and that's we want to get that in here. Okay, so let's sort of launch into this. I think. This is there's much to talk about, much to for you to talk among yourselves about, and how this works, how ideas and bodies and things work together. This is the Plato's realm here. So Socrates, let's go to Socrates. Socrates very quickly is he calls himself a gadfly. He's a guy who comes out of the Peloponnesian War, which is the war between Sparta and Athens, and becomes a type of wandering citizen. He's got a wife, and he doesn't apparently like her much, and so he's going to go ask questions. And so he develops what we call this Socratic method. This IC, remember, Socratic is the stuff. He asks questions, lots of questions. The basic principle of asking questions in the Socratic method is that we have answers, okay, in ourselves. And so you don't ask the same kind of questions as Herodotus does. Herodotus says, why was there a war between these people there and those people there at that time? Well, you don't know that by intuition or something. How you know? So the Socratic isn't any good for knowing history. The Socratic is great for like, what is justice? What is the right way to do things? What's best? See? And those are things that we have hardwired into us, is these ideas, these intuitions of and so the Socratic method is, he calls himself a midwife. Here again, we're going to get into these sexual images here, birth images and stuff like that, but a midwife to ideas, that we have ideas in us. He's going to help us get our own ideas out. So he is not a teacher. He is actually a midwife. Okay, these are our ideas. We just can't get them. So he has this Socratic method. And that's the way the Plato's dialogues mostly work, is these people in sort of theatrical set pieces talking to each other about, intuitional things. They are not talking, again, about historical questions or geographical questions. Where is Madagascar? How big is Africa? No, those are not questions for Socrates and Plato. Questions for Socrates and Plato are, what's the nature of beauty? And what's the role of well, that even too specific a question I'm getting at. Philosophy has a different kind of thing it does than history, and so that's why I'm not a philosopher. Okay, now, and by the way, in this philosophical tradition, Augustine tells us that. And it comes from Pythagoras. Pythagoras lived a couple hundred years before Socrates and Plato. And Pythagoras, was, along with Solon and Lycurgus and a number of people, were considered wise men. Okay, and there was this sort of a Roman tradition to sort of list the wise men of the ancient world type of thing, just like they do the ancient wonders of the world type of thing. Romans love lists. That's why when you read the Romans who don't like the Greek philosophers, the Roman mind is a much more concrete mind, and it likes lists. My wife is Italian, and she likes lists. But so in this Roman tradition, going back to Pythagoras, is that Pythagoras was supposed to have been wise. And someone comes up to him and says, oh, you're the wisest man in the world or something like that. And he says, no, I am not Sophia, wisdom. I am merely philosophia, a friend of wisdom. You know, philo is a type of, you know, it's a low level love. It's a friendship. Okay, I'm a friend of wisdom. So philosophy follows in this tradition of friends of wisdom. People who don't claim to be wise themselves, that's the humility side of it. You see, they are humble, technically, although philosophers have a reputation for hubris, rightfully so. But they have the humility written into their sort of like DNA, their definitional, as we are friends of wisdom. We're not pretending to be all-knowing or anything like that. Philosophers are inquirers, and we're going to get into that here with this too. We do inquiry, and what we're going to get into too is, you see, so the stuff you're reading is about eros. Eros is the sexual love. You know, this is the longing, yearning, you know, sexual love, whereas philo is the friendship love, partnership love between two business people or something like that. Eros is the sexual love, you know. Agape is the sort of big love, you know, Jesus love. All right. So Socrates is this guy who's asking questions and he's wandering around, and he does lead the young astray, you know, and they start to worship other gods, and they do different things. Socrates will talk about like demons and things talking in his conscience. This is not some sort of secularization so much as a twisting of the system, and very much politically at its center is an argument against democracy. Socrates does not like democracy. Plato and Platonistic systems don't like democracy, and that's Aristotle's critique of Plato in the politics. Is it's not popular. It's a utopian system. It's like find the best person in the world and let that best person be king and stuff like that. And it's a utopian system. And so there's a lot of utopian thought, which is okay. You know, it's good to sit around and brainstorm utopias and stuff like this. We have a long, long tradition in the humanities of that. The most famous, of course, is the book Utopia by Thomas More. So nothing wrong with being utopian, but just make sure you know when you're being utopian and when you're not. Aristotle is, I'm dealing with nature and what nature, common sense, all this other sort of stuff, dealing with what is. And then Plato and the philosophical tradition is sort of much more of a, let's think about how, you know, what might be type of thing, or like a should be, or like a what could possibly be the best. It's sort of almost otherworldly. You know, this is why metaphysics is to get above what is physical. Okay. I don't want to, and if some of you might be thinking you want to be philosophy majors, and I do not want to dissuade you. I want you to just understand that there comes a time where you have to, it's part of your growing up. It's part of that college experience to choose. Do I love literature for reasons that literature, you know, inspires me? Do I love history because history inspires me to think this way? Do I want to be a philosopher? That goes in a different direction. It's not like one person can be any of these things. It's not one method. There's different methods, and they have different orientations, although they do merge together a lot ultimately. I'm what's called an intellectual historian, and so therefore I am a philosopher. I'm a lover. I'm a friend of philosophers. Just made that up. So we'll have to think about whether we like that or not. But okay. So I had you read the Symposium. Oh my goodness, the Symposium is just a wacko thing, you know. If you're a guy like me, and I don't want to talk about sex, but this is where philosophy really gets weird. And you know, it's a great academic tradition to. I went to a symposium. Well, dang it, if you went to one of these Greek ones, you'd be arrested. So the thing is there. This is a part of the philosophic tradition, this utopian thought tradition, is to gather in these odd sort of settings where that are highly sexualized, and in the Symposium, one of the great things about the Symposium is to discuss that this role of sex in our lives. And so Socrates in the Symposium is actually sort of aloof from the sort of actual physicality of the sex. All sorts of, if you read the whole thing, Alcibiades and stuff is going to try and drag Aristotle into being in this sort of what is a pedophilic relationship, where Aristotle would be the teacher seducing and having sex with his young male student Alcibiades. But Socrates doesn't buy it, and Alcibiades is sort of promoting it. There's a drama going on in here, which is always discussed throughout history and stuff like that. Alcibiades is not a great believable figure. He's sort of flaky. But Socrates then is in the midst of this discussion that goes in a lot of different ways, typical of these sort of theatrical dialogues. Socrates comes down to his nitty-gritty stuff he's going to say, and Plato says that Socrates said that I'm going to let you know what a woman told me, which is diatema, you know, and that's a fascinating sort of thing, you know. It's and so we don't know if this diatema existed, but she probably did, you know, and this something like this probably happened, and probably happened often, and he's doing some sort of gist of these. But diatema comes to speak, by a Manichaean woman called Diatema, a woman who was deeply versed in many other fields of knowledge. And then Socrates says, it was she who taught me the philosophy of love. Okay? See, and then we get into here, and I had you read this stuff, and it's, you know, go slow and sort of keep track of things. It gets a little wild at times, but it really is amazing here. Love is the longing of immortality. Love is where you know you lack something. And so, see, this is how you're doing. See, you're not sitting around doing science experiments about love. What you're doing is, if we discuss, we can collectively talk about, like, what is our intuitions, and love seems to be a lack of something, and so love of beauty comes in, and diatema goes into all this sort of stuff, and then diatema links it very much to procreation, actual sex. Yes, physical bodies yearn for each other, and in this yearning, they are their most creative. This is the greatest creativity of all. Human beings create life through sex. It's like, you know, so sex is very special in this. It's not like, you know, Seinfeld or something, where sex is just something you do when you're bored. You know, sex isn't something, you know, just, you know, your generation's screwed up on sex. But Plato has this high view of sex, and that our sexual activity is linked to understanding. Our body actually helps us understand the greater truth, which is in our minds, and which is that love is ultimately this thing that's in our minds, that we are attracted to beauty, we are attracted to goodness, we are attracted to things that we like. And then he goes into it's eros. It's erotic love. And there's that ick again. You see, eros and erotic. Ick is the stuff of eros. It's the stuff of actual sexual love. Okay? And, so Socrates ultimately agrees with Diotima in this. And isn't this a beautiful, this is like, Aristotle's got nothing like this. This is just such a beautiful collection of these wonderful dialogues and stuff like that. They're always remember that, it's theatrical and stuff like that. And so here again, I'm not a philosopher. But you read these and you go, wow, okay, this really raises interesting issues. So this is the Symposium, and then also read that Roman material, because the Roman material